You just mentioned some of the biggest people in the fashion world. I'm getting Galliano and people like that. But by the same token, what was it like? Were you bumping into these people? You know, you go, I'm just going to go get a newspaper and say, hey, John, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm back.
Pop to the pub. You pop to the pub and they'd be in there. Your hair is amazing.
Right.
Thank
you. Is it actually, is your hair real? It's not attached or anything like
real.
I don't know. You live in that day and age, don't you? I don't know.
No, this is
not a wig, is it?
No, it's not a wig. This is my hair. Hi, I'm Stacey Jackson.
And I'm Roy Bassnett.
Join us for the Gen-X-Perience podcast every other week.
So if you were born between 1965 and 1980, that makes you a Gen Xer. And that being the case, that makes this podcast for you.
We are interviewing the most amazing people from all over the world in all walks of life, discussing culture, music, and politics.
The range is incredible. You're going to get to hear some wonderful stories.
So join us every other week for the Gen-X-Perience podcast. I'm Stacey Jackson.
And I'm Roy Bassnett. Hello and welcome to the Gen-X-Perience podcast. We're back again. I'm Roy Bassnett and I'm with
Stacey Jackson.
What is it with you? I mean, at the end of the day, we are in this studio.
Yeah.
It's roasting hot because we don't have LED lights. We have halogens up there.
Well, that's because we want to look like Jennifer Lopez.
140 degrees in here and you've got fur on.
Okay, because you want to look like Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, right. I guess you want to look like her.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You got to suffer for fashion, my love. You got to suffer for fashion. In fact, with our guest being on in any second, I'm going to introduce him. I have to just do this and show off my hair.
Right, okay. How long have you had that hair?
Our next guest is one of the hairstylist to the stars. And of course, he has been doing my husband and all of his salon has been doing my hair and my kids' hair for 20 something years since we moved to London. So I wanted to show off my fabulous locks.
So let me see if I got this right. I am the baldest person in the room at the moment, and we're going to talk about hairstyling.
Absolutely. You can tell that I brought this guest in.
Maybe if I say I've got a challenge for you.
Yes, you do.
And he can come on to me and see what he can do.
What he can do with your hair?
Well, because
maybe you could braid your eyebrows.
It's possible. But before we get into speaking with our special guest today, who you're going to tell us a lot about because he's more than just a stylist.
Yeah, yes,
there's a lot more to him than that. I mean, what's it like from your point of view in the morning? Are you one of these kind of people that would never leave the house unless the face is on? Hey, look, I'm just going to put me jogging pants on today.
I do that. You can ask anyone. I love a good pair of sweatpants. And even when I do the radio show, I'm like, sometimes I'm still in my pajamas. I do basic minimal stuff. My hair always has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
So I get professionally blow dried, just so that it lasts longer and I don't have to futz around with it. And my face, I try to do the minimal, just something that gives me a little color. And I feel like, when I wake up, I feel good enough. But then there has to be the glam side to everyone when you got to leave a little room to zhuzh it up sometimes, especially when you're going to be on camera or if you're performing, or there's always the other side, which is fun. It's like a whole other side to me. It's like a bit of Hannah Montana, where you get to be the mommy and then you also get to be a pop star. I like the dressing up stuff. It's fun.
This is very good.
Yeah, it is fun.
Okay. Well, you better tell us about our special guest today.
Okay, perfect. Well, we were talking before we went on air, we were talking about how, our show Gen X is about people who have lived roughly our age and have lived through the 80s and the early 90s and, just in various walks of culture, lifestyle, everything. So, and we were talking about how it's like the 40th anniversary of many things, coming up. Like it's the 40th anniversary of Freddy Krueger. A lot of the songs, obviously the 80s records that were coming out, like in 1984, Michael Jackson's Thriller, there was tons of, these poignant things that happened 40 years ago.
That's a scary thing, isn't it? That 40 years, because it's a lifetime, isn't it?
It is a lifetime.
And you still, perhaps maybe it's one of those things that you end up being in a state of denial once being a Gen Xer and you get to the latter parts of your Gen X kind of area, as it were. And you think, no, there's no way that Spandau Ballet brought gold out 40 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, right? Because you still know every single lyric. That's why. And it's like, I can't remember where I put my keys 5 seconds ago, let alone a lyric from 1984, but I do. I don't know why.
It was advised to me in the field of radio to never refer to a record from the past as a golden oldie, and certainly don't mention that it's 40 years old, because the person who's listening thinks, oh my God, I love it. A Duran Duran record's coming on. And this record's 40 years old. And you think, oh.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
That means I'm a lot older.
Makes you think it, right? Makes you think a lot about how old you are. Oh,
but anyway, listen, back with a special guest.
Speaking about it, this is a man that never ages, by the way. He looks better and better every time I see him.
Picture of Dorian Gray.
Yes, he is. He's a wonderfully handsome bloke. His name is Paul Edmonds. He is coming on any second. I think he's attached via Zoom. There he is with his fantastic handlebar mustache.
It's Gray.
Well, come on. Aren't we all? But thanks to you, I'm not.
You're not.
I find it amazing, Paul. I've got to say, because, mustaches, I think a Tom Selleck mustache is probably a bit of a fashion no-no at the moment. But dare I say it, the circus strongman mustache is massively in at the minute, really, isn't it?
It is. And he wears it very, very well.
I've had this since probably I was 32, and it comes and goes, but it's kind of my look. I shaved off at one point, and everyone kind of was going, I recognize you, but I'm not quite sure who you are. And I was saying, oh my God, the guy with the moustache.
That's hilarious. So we were talking about 40 years and how, all these things are sort of, celebrating their 40th anniversary. And so are you, with the opening of your first salon in London. And it was on Beecham Place in London, which is a very posh area, street in Knightsbridge. And of course, I only started going to you about 25 years ago. So at that point, you had moved around the corner. You've moved a few times since. So tell us a little bit about what it was like setting up your first shop in the 80s and all of the clients that came in.
What was really strange about it was that I was kind of fed up with working in salons where the stylist was the important person. And what the client wanted was not important, and it didn't work very well with me. So I kind of wanted to have something that was a little bit different. I was looking for a salon, and I got this premises suddenly appeared in Beecham Place, and I didn't know that Beecham Place was a fashion kind of street. It was a street just off Knightsbridge, just below Harrods. I just like, okay, we'll go there. I opened it up, not knowing that I was directly opposite San Lorenzo, which in the 80s was kind of one of the major places to go and eat. And Princess Diana went there all the time. Mick Jagger was in there all the time. So it was one of those places that it was very, very trendy. I just wanted to be the best type of hairdresser you could be. And that's 1984. And it was a very different world to the one that we live in now. And it kind of took off. And in a way, it was a bit of a shock because it took off really quickly. And from 1984 to the end of the 80s, we were involved in lots of different things that I was really quite shocked about, because we ended up taking part in London Fashion Week. And London Fashion Week started up 40 years ago. And in fact, we're doing hair for the Fashion Awards this year, which is next month. And it's quite funny being part of that 40 years from when it started. So, which is amazing. I have to say it is amazing.
On that kind of length of time, and to have done it, and then to continue to be doing what you love to do so many years later.
Do you know what I've got to ask, Paul? Just sorry to interrupt there, because if somebody's starting up a business, the very first time you want to get in, you think, well, I'm going to start small. Starting up in Knightsbridge, I mean, the overhead of that must have been phenomenal. You must have been supremely confident that you had something to offer.
Listen, I was very young. I was 27. So I was stupid as well. So when the bank said to me, kind of, what happens if it doesn't work? I went, well, I guess sell my house and we'll start again. And that's kind of how I felt.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think it is an entrepreneurial thing, and you either have that kind of risk-taking bit to you or you don't. I think I'd be a bit scared now doing it because I don't think I've got enough time to catch up. But at that point, it was just like, yeah, let's go for it. And I say we're really lucky. And also, what happened in Beecham Place just after we opened, Jasper Conran opened a shop just below us. Bruce Oldfield was in Beecham Place, and then John Galliano opened up. So it suddenly became this place where everyone going, "Oh, it's amazing! I can't believe that you've chosen this place. You must have known all about this going on." Of course, me being a bit thick, I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump, where things kind of happen to me. And I kind of catch on to the coattails and get drawn along with it. But I think luck plays a certain amount. I think hanging on to that luck is the hard bit. And
what was it like? So you just mentioned some of the biggest people in the fashion world. I'm getting Galliano and people like that. A bit controversial, I'll give you that. But by the same token, what was it like? Were you bumping into these people? You know, you go, I'm just going to go get a newspaper and say, "Hey, John, how are you? Oh, yeah, back."
Pop to the pub. We popped to the pub and they'd be in there. So it was kind of quite an amazing kind of place to be. And it feels odd now because the world isn't like that. And it kind of changed. And I think I was very lucky also that I had a great PR at the time, PR called Lynn Franks. And Ab Fab, the series was based on her. And she was crazy, but also amazing. And so she introduced me to like people like Wendy Dagworthy. There was a company which I was looking up because it's our 40th anniversary. I was looking up all the stuff that was going on then. And a company which was unbelievable in 1984 was a company called Body Map. And they kind of hit the road kind of more than running. And they blew up everywhere, and it was like an amazing brand. And after about 3 years, it kind of fell apart. A time when experimenting in fashion and hair was really taking place. And it's a bit safe now, to be truthful. And people tend to want to keep their hair long and pretty. And I listen to our kind of assistants, and they're like, "Oh, maybe I'll have an inch taken off, go wild." Where then it was just like, shall I have that side cut off, or shall I do a different color? What shall I do? So it's always.
I think the thing is, Paul, the thing about hair, when I and believe it or not, I did actually possess some at one point in my life. But whereas you could wear your hair in any way you want to now, whereas if you'd have done that back in the 70s or the 80s, if I'd have had this kind of look in the 1980s, they'd have said, "Oh, he must be a football hooligan." Right, because he shaves his head.
Kojak.
Or Kojak. Yeah, you could have done that one as well. Whereas if you had long hair at the time when people were having short hair, you think, "Oh, look at that," like what we might call a meth up here, somebody well out of step with the fashion world. But you can pretty much get away with anything now, can't you, Paul?
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, though, because people are more conservative now than I think they used to be. And we noticed that within the salon. You're always advising people what you think could suit them better. And it's one of our big things in the salon that if someone comes in and asks for a style and you don't think it's right, or a color that you don't think is right, you say no. Because it's much better they go to someone else and them take the flack for it looking horrible rather than us. So I think it's one of the things that, we talk about.
Well, that's the thing about being a professional. Somebody's going to pay someone specifically for some professional advice, whether it's styling or legal advice or anything like that. And if you're not going to take it, then why are you there? Right? Like, I agree with you. It's like, and you also don't want to be the one where they're sitting in the chair bawling their eyeballs out because, you've cut their, I'm sure a lot of these people come in and say, "I want to look like this picture. You must hate this. Can you make me look like this picture?" Meanwhile, it's like, Jennifer Lopez in the picture, and this person looks nothing like her. Her shape of face is different. The hair color is different. How do you make that, and of course, so they're visualizing that with the haircut, they're suddenly going to look like her. And they're not gonna. So it must be really a conundrum for you when someone says, "Can you do this?"
All you can do is be honest. And if you say honestly, it's going to look shit.
Yeah.
So
Did you ever? Yeah.
And
Did you?
You said that to people.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it's one of these. Better to find it out before
I agree.
the deed is done.
You're like, you don't have this problem, and you're probably saving a lot of money.
I have.
I probably put Paul Edmonds' grandchildren through school already, because between all my 4 kids and my husband and me. Anyways, so I wanted to ask you a little bit also about your earlier years and what inspired your passion for this. How did the trends of the 80s influence, if at all, the work that you did? And obviously, are there any 80s trends that are current now, or is it still cringy? Like, are people wearing big hair?
Yeah, of course they are. You have one of the kind of major things that
Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah, a bit Farrah Fawcett. It's kind of late 70s, early 80s. And I think it's still there. I still think it looks beautiful. So, and you have to say, you've always got great hair, and your hair is amazing. Because
Thank you.
Is it actually? Sorry, Steph. Is your hair real? It's not attached or anything like
real.
I don't know. You live in that day and age, don't you? I don't know.
No, this is
not a wig, is it?
No, it's not a wig. This is my hair. Oh, your Leia is on the floor at the moment now. No, this is my hair.
Okay. I've got to ask, the question I've got to ask, because you mentioned there about all of these people that were hanging around your salon back in Knightsbridge, and you mentioned that Princess Diana was there. Was there ever the temptations thing, I'm going to go offer it a £25 voucher to come in and have a brand on it? Did you ever feel like you wanted to do anything like that?
There's a couple of times she had her hair done, and I was seeing her walk past and thinking, oh my God, it's terrible. But besides that, at one point in the 80s, it got quite big. And I think she needed to have it kind of taken down. Thankfully, she did. And Sam McKnight.
Well, she started a huge trend with her hair.
Yeah. It was,
fashion icon.
It was one of those things where everyone followed. But that wasn't particularly my look. I used to do Annie Lennox's hair during that time. And so that was more my kind of stuff, kind of either cropping it off or having hair long. And I quite like more natural stuff. But, that blow-dried look that she had was huge.
Well, you used to work at the BBC. So tell us a little bit about that time.
Okay, that was back in the early 80s. That I was asked by someone who is running the BBC makeup school. And they used to run a makeup school which went for 8 weeks during the summer. And so they said, we need to teach the new makeup students to be able to do a trim or a haircut. Could you come and teach it? And first of all, I was just like, well, I'm not so sure. And then I kind of thought about it and said, okay, fine. I've come up with a system. And really it's for extras just to have either the short back and sides. There's lots of period stuff going on at that time. And I kind of came up with a system that was very easy and foolproof. So I went in and I taught that for the first year for 2 weeks. And they then came back and said, we want you to teach now for a month because you've been so successful. We want to do more. And then they came back with the makeup designers who were kind of using these new people and saying they're really good at doing haircuts now. I want to be able to do the same. I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then they disbanded the makeup school and the makeup department to the BBC. So all those people became freelance, and they went off to different companies and to films. And so what happened then was people knew me as a trusted person. So the thing that happened for me during that period was that I learned how they broke down a script, how they decided what someone's going to look like for a show. And then when they came to me and they'd say, right, I've got this person. Helen Mirren was one of them that came in. And Helen Mirren was playing a detective in a series. And they kind of said, we want her hair to look like someone that's had a haircut. We want it to look like a new haircut. We want it to look like she's had it cut a while back. So it needs to look a little bit disheveled and messy, but it needs to be neat enough to be a policewoman. Anyway, so I did that, and I did her for, I don't know, must have been 8 or 9 years it ran for. You ended up getting to be the trusted pair of hands that when a designer was doing something. And what was interesting, again, going back to us doing the 80s, kind of looking back on my career, was that I suddenly realized that one year, and I think it was 1985 or 86, I think there were about 10 or 12 major productions going on for TV. and we did all the main characters. And suddenly you realize that you're actually doing quite a lot of work with a lot of famous people, but because you're doing what you do, you have that person come in, you do it, they go off. And what it was that you didn't go every week to do their hair. They'd bring them in every 3 weeks or 4 weeks just to have their hair trimmed up and to look after them. You got to know these people quite well, and so they'd end up coming back. And it was really interesting working with these people. And I've still worked with a lot of those same makeup artists from back then.
Can you tell us some of the TV shows you just mentioned there?
I can tell you some of the films that I did.
Films, that'd be good. Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. I did Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly for Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was actually quite funny because that was a Disney production. And the makeup artist rang me up and said, look, can you send me your CV? Because Disney want to see your CV. So I went, okay, fine. And I sent it. And she came straight back to me and went, okay, now that was an English CV. I want an American CV.
Okay.
So
what's the difference? I mean, I think I know the difference, but what was the difference?
The difference. It's like, I'd be like, I worked alongside this person to produce this look where, in the American one, you went, I created this look for this artist at this time, and this is what I did. And so it's not like we work together. This is me, and I'm great. So
right.
You know what I'm like, Stacey. So I'm very
completely reserved, a lot more reserved.
I find that fascinating, that because obviously Ant-Man and the Wasp is a great movie. Michael Douglas is marvelous, and the idea that you think, well, we need a specific hairstylist in order for him to have that look in the movie, and you've got to sell yourself in order to get that gig. Is that how it was?
Yeah, you have to sell yourself. Because what they wanted to do originally, they wanted to bring over a hairdresser to cut a couple of the leads' hair. And they were trying to save money, I have to say, by having me go. What happens is I had to do Jake Gyllenhaal's hair a couple of years ago for a movie, and one of the guys I'd worked with previously, and we did the hair for June. So we did most of the hair color for June and a couple of the leads in one and two. And the makeup artist that did that rang me up and said, look, I'm about to shoot a film with a guy and he needs to look like he's worked in special forces, but now he's working kind of undercover. And so in the first part of the film, he's going to have a helmet on. So it has to look all right if there's a helmet on. But when he takes the helmet off, it can't look like he's had a haircut. But, you end up thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. But anyway, so Jake Gyllenhaal came in and I cut his hair at a hotel. And I had this makeup artist on a Zoom call and telling me what he wanted. And then as I was cutting it, kind of saying, now, is that feel right? Do you want that to be a bit shorter? And it was the first kind of haircuts I did over Zoom with a Zoom makeup artist.
Wow.
And it's it's interesting stuff that you end up doing. And it's always amazing what you do and how you do it.
Is it like, because one of the things, you probably wouldn't have had your hair done in this part of the world, but is the principle still the same that, when you cut in the hair and you make that small talk, like, are you going away this year and all of that kind of stuff? Does that happen with a big celebrity?
Not normally. It does sometimes. The main thing is they're normal human beings. So you need to talk to them like a human being and just ask them how their life is, how their kids, what's happening. So it's, a lot of it's small talk, but it's also really interesting because I quite like people. So I'm always interested in people and I find it quite interesting and interesting seeing how their life is and how very often how normal.
Yeah, for sure. I have one quick question for you. So, how like all the sort of every era, there's we call it a hera, right? Like there's always like, there was Farrah Fawcett in the 70s, 80s, and then there was Princess Diana in the mid 80s. And then in the early 90s, you had the Rachel, right? Everybody cut their hair like the Rachel from Friends. And there's always like that sort of iconic hairstyle, at least for women. A lot of the teenagers had the Justin Bieber, and then there was, all these footballers. So there definitely also is a thing for the guys. Like of all of the heroes, what was your least or a couple of least favorite hairstyles that everyone came in and said, I want you to make me look like, wow, which one was it, the one that you were like, why?
I think really it's when the hair got very big that it got slightly ridiculous. The shoulders got big and then sometimes it went a bit too big, and you end up thinking, oh my God, the people having perms all the time and trying to get their hair bigger the better. And I think a lot of the hair ended up looking very chewed up and not that great.
Oh, Roy can tell you a story about a perm.
I had a perm. Yeah, I had a perm.
That's probably why he has no hair now.
I'll tell you, I did have a perm back in the day. It was.
I had a perm as well.
I'll tell you. Do you know a funny story, actually? Oh, I always remember because I've told the perm story on here before, but there was another occasion when I was so influenced by the new romantic scene. And I was in like I think it was like a chemist or something. They had spray-in hair color. Right. And I seen this and it was red. And I thought, I'm going red tonight. I'm gonna do it. So I sprayed in this red thing and I thought, I'm good with that. I'm cool. I'm out. So it goes out. And of course it rains. And I get to the bathroom going to, and are you okay? What's happened? Who's done that to you?
You look like a bloodbath.
It looked like somebody had glassed me or something like that. It looked like it was all blood going down your face. But I've got to say, when you talk about some of the fashion disasters of the hairstyle disasters of the 1980s, the one that sticks in my mind is Mike Scott out of A Flock of Seagulls.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
For sure.
I'm not sure.
I believe he was originally a hairstylist.
Well, he could have fooled me.
You know what? I think the guy who was the lead singer of A Flock of Seagulls, Mike Scott, please check this, because if I'm right, I'm definitely the 80s guru. But I have a feeling that he was actually a hairstylist. Am I right?
Right. I'm led to believe from conversations that I've had with Stacey that also on this very impressive list of clients that you've got, Sam Smith is in there as well, Paul. Is that right?
Yeah, he is.
What's he like to do?
So he's lovely. Well, I should say they. How that happened was that my daughter's ex-boyfriend manages him, and Sam Everett, who is manager, came in and said, oh, I've got this guy who's a brilliant singer, absolutely amazing singer, and I think it'd be great if you could do his hair. We don't have any budget, but would you consider it? And I was like, well, let me see what he's like. So I went to a concert, and it was in a pub. And I was blown away by his voice. And in fact, he made me cry because his voice was so beautiful and the song he wrote was beautiful. So yeah, definitely do him. Anyway, I then became the person that went everywhere with him. And, I have to say thank you to him that I flew all over the world kind of doing his hair and doing stuff. And I actually went to the Oscars when he won the Oscar. And that was an incredible thing to do. And also, one of the things you have to kind of understand is you can say, well, he hasn't got much hair, so what the hell were you doing? It's not about doing the hair. It's about keeping people calm, making them feel good and making you feel confident. You must know this, Stacey. It's like before you're recording anything or doing anything, you have to tick off a box of all the things that will make you feel safe. And if you feel safe, then you can go out and give your all in your performance.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And confident, not just safe.
Yeah.
You need to feel confident and good about yourself. Yeah.
Now you get your hair sorted with this man, don't you?
I had for 20 years.
So what's she like as a client? What does she just leave the hair and come back and pick it up later, or does she,
no?
No. What's she? Is she a decent? Is she a fussy client? Is she a fussy? Is she easy to? Is
He
she
actually
easy to-
sees my husband more than he sees me these days.
Yeah, true. But
My husband's
he is-
like watches every single freaking millimeter that either grows or falls out.
What's Stacey like as a client? Then is she okay?
She's lovely. She's honestly.
Yeah,
if you spoke
I'm
to
paying him to say that.
Right.
Then-
Okay.
No,
Well-
I don't need paying.
Right.
Everyone loves her. So
Oh,
Well, now we've
Well, now
established that.
yes.
Now we've established that. This
Thank
is
you, Paul.
this is the part of the show. Stacey will explain it to you where you're going to text your grey matter.
yes.
Over to
Okay.
you. Yeah.
So it's 80s trivia. I will not make you solve the Rubik's Cube, but I will. These are all random cards. I'm going to literally pick the top of the card. I'm going to ask you, we'll ask 4 questions. If you get them all right, amazing. If you get,
Well, you'd be top of the league. You'd be top of the league. If you
probably.
yeah, you'll be top of the league. Somebody got 3 out of 4 so
No
far.
one's done 4 out of 4.
No, so, yeah, okay. And I was so funny because I'm like a little embarrassed because I walked in going, I got these trivia cards. I got them all. I was in the hotel room. I was flying through the answers. And then, of course, on air, he asks me all these questions. And
And you was shit.
Nothing.
I couldn't get any of them. Anyway, okay. The soap opera Dynasty, or as you all say here, Dynasty, made which oversized fashion popular in the 1980s?
Oh, big shoulders.
That's right. Shoulder pads.
Easy
Okay.
one. So that's 1.
1.
And I've got a feeling you're going to get this one as well, Paul. So, which song by the band Berlin was featured in the film Top Gun?
Oh, shit.
Oh, I know this one.
I thought he'd have got this.
I know it. I can't answer.
I'm giving
No, I
you a
can't.
clue here. Paul, I'm giving you a clue here.
No, it's no good.
You got it.
I know what it is. I
Yeah.
knew what it was.
Hair.
Should I say?
Oh,
You take my breath away.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, we're
Oh
not
my
going
God. I played Top Gun over and over and over. And I had the soundtrack. Oh my God, the most amazing soundtrack.
Right.
Oh, okay. Here,
Okay,
let's
we're
see
not
what
getting a
this one
4.
is.
We're not getting them
Oh, I
top
wonder
full
whether or not
house.
you're going to know this one. This one's funny, actually. I knew the answer to this one, but I don't know if you'll know it. You probably will. Okay, so which country's bobsled team became unlikely heroes at the 1988 Winter Olympics?
Jamaica.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that what Cool Runnings is? Cool
Yeah,
Runnings?
Cool Runnings.
Yeah.
It's a movie
Cool
about
Running,
that.
I
Okay.
remember the film. It's a great film.
Right. I've got a feeling you're going to make it 3 out of 4 here. So, and if you don't get this, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And we're going back to 1987. In which 1987 film does Michael Douglas play Gordon Gekko?
God. Wolf of Wall Street.
Close.
Oh,
Close.
I can't give it. I've got to take your first answer. And it is Wall Street.
is Wall
But you need
Street.
to drop the wolf off at
Yeah.
the beginning. Huh?
Yeah.
Wall Street.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Should we give him that
Okay,
one?
You're totally giving
Yeah.
him that one. Yes.
Is this your way of trying to get a discount for the next time you get right? I understand.
But interestingly enough, it's like Wolf of Wall Street. In Wall Street, was Charlie Sheen played the mentee, right? He worked for Michael Douglas in that movie. And in the Wolf of Wall Street, was Charlie Sheen or Michael Douglas they made a cameo?
Oh, no, I don't know about that.
I have to check that with my handy dandy
Might
Google.
be
But by
right.
the way,
Did we find out about Mike Scott, by the way?
yes, he was a hairdresser before he became a pop star. I knew that answer. Okay.
Oh, listen, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you very much
Yeah.
indeed for taking time out.
Great talking to you.
You
Yeah,
too. Oh,
Mike-
it was so good. I'm going to come around and visit soon when I'm back in
Okay.
London.
Great.
Right.
And
Sounds
hope
good.
you get back
Yeah.
safe from the snow.
Have you got a social media presence that you'd like to mention or anything before we go, Paul?
Or a website.
Well, it's pauledmonds.com. So that's the main website. And then we have an Instagram, which is Paul Edmonds 217.
Is that a code for something? Your
It was
address.
it was our old original address before we moved to kind of here to the power station.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that where you are? You're in Battersea Power Station?
Yeah, now they're in the
Yeah.
Battersea Power Station,
Wow.
which is a bit of a schlep for me. I ain't going to lie.
Yeah.
But, it is
There
what it
you
is.
go.
In the summertime, I find myself going more because
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
easier to get there in the
love
summer. But when it's cold and rainy and yucky, it's hard because you
really
come
don't.
out with all this fabulous hair
And
and
it's
you're
not
far.
Good.
And I
Brilliant
was gonna
stuff. Yeah.
say, it's not even that. It's the wind comes down the river and you have like,
Yeah, you walk out the door with this perfect hair and all of a sudden, You're like, okay. Yeah, when it's raining, it's not easy.
I might just go in. I'll go into your place just out of nostalgic reasons, really, just to imagine what it must have been.
Have a look.
Yeah, remind myself of what it was like getting a haircut.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you once again. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Love you. Mwah.
And thank you. And that pretty much concludes another episode of the Gen-X-Perience podcast. Wonderful guy. You know?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was really fun to chat to him. You know, I know him for 20 odd years, 23 years. I've been going, no, maybe longer. Oh my God. My whole family has been going to
all
the
in
salon.
there.
Yeah. We really used to live very close to them as well. I'd like to be in close proximity to where I get my hair done. Like I said, you don't want to walk out of there and then all of a sudden it's like, by the time you get home, it's like, why'd you bother, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, my husband still goes, all my kids still see them. Right. They literally don't go to get their hair cut where they live. One lives in New York, one lives in Philadelphia, and one lives in Sweden. And every time they're back in London, they go to see Paul.
Do you know what? I remember it might have been in the 80s actually. There was one of these kind of, I think it used to be Ronco. Remember Ronco? They used to make things. And it was the home haircut kit that they did. And the only way I can describe it would be like a comb with a razor blade in it. And the idea was that you would be able to cut your hair while combing it at the same time. I had that done and it didn't end well. Maybe it was for the best that I didn't end up having hair in later life. Right, listen, we're done and dusted, and thank you very much indeed for checking out the podcast this time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we look forward to entertaining you next time with a guest here on the Gen-X-Perience podcast.